later, I think.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the Londonderry Utilities Committee meeting for Tuesday, February 6, 2024. We are in the Moose Hill Conference Room in Town Hall. And with that, if you could follow with me, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have no members of the public in attendance tonight, so we'll move on through public comment. We have a couple of gentlemen here, Stuart Ormsby and Bart Fromos, to talk to us about solar net metering, group net metering, and to talk about the community power aggregation project. So I put them up at the start of the agenda, just so they can get out of here and not have to listen to us talk for the rest of the evening. So, so with that, I have the Community Power Aggregation Program first on the agenda, if you'd like to start with that.
Sure.
And kind of let us know where we're at, where you think we're at. And I think we all have some questions, but I think,
Sure.
you know, where are our next steps? We want to keep this thing moving.
Okay. So I think, looking back at my notes, we sent back what I think was a final version of the plan, if the committee is satisfied with that?
Yep.
That's all wrapped up? Okay. So then the next step after that would be to work towards doing the public hearing. So we need to have at least 2 public hearings.
Right.
And I wasn't sure, Mr. Wiles, if you, before even going to the public meetings, if you wanted to go back to the council as a touch base first, or if, I mean, per the statute, I mean, strictly speaking, the public hearings are conducted by the committee. So there isn't a statutory necessary step to go back to the council, but.
So Ron Dunn is our resident councilman on the committee. What do you think, Ron? Do you want us to make a presentation to the town council before we move ahead?
I think it was pretty unanimous when you were there that we all agreed, so.
Yep.
I think, in my opinion, you're fine.
And I think we're going to propose having our first public hearing with the town council. And so that'll be an opportunity at that point in time to get into the nitty-gritty details.
Okay. And has the committee discussed dates yet or not yet?
So not yet. We're in the middle of budget season, and we have our deliberative session coming up this Saturday. I think the council is probably going to be fully engaged with discussions on budget and everything, and then with the election coming up. So I'm not expecting anything with the council before probably mid-March.
Yeah, would the second meeting in March work for you guys? That could be an option.
Yep, and
Yeah.
that's, let's say, it's probably, what, the 10th or
I
something
can
like
tell you.
that?
Hold on.
I don't have the calendar in
Yeah,
front of me.
hold So, if we follow the schedule, it should be the 18th. But I can confirm that.
Yeah, and I'll throw that out to the town
Yeah.
manager as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Throw that out to Mike, and
Yeah.
Mike and John Farrell can talk through
Yeah.
that. And but if that
Yep.
works for you,
Yeah,
that's
good.
what we should plan on.
And so just thinking ahead toward that meeting, we would be prepared to so this would be a public hearing, so we can make a presentation just generally describing what community aggregation is about. What I can do, just planning ahead, I can forward a collection of slides that we would use for that public hearing. I'll send it to the committee. Take any feedback if you want to make any tweaks on that.
Sure.
But typically what we try to do is, keep the presentation somewhat brief, fully descriptive, but maybe 12 minutes or so, and take questions from there.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Well, it's in my mind. I think we'll do this one in March, and we're probably going to have the second meeting on a Saturday. We'll do it over at the cafeteria at the high school.
Okay.
See if we can get a bigger audience. Get the town involved in that more than we probably will at the first one. So.
Yeah, I mean, the results typically are a little bit mixed in terms of attendance for these.
Yep.
You know, we've had a couple towns where we've been surprised by the turnout. I think Ossipee was probably one of them. And then we've had larger communities like yours where the turnout has been, you know, pretty small, you know, so.
And it's kind of our job as the Utilities Committee to get the word out,
Yep.
and, you know, to the best of our abilities
Yeah.
as well, so. And we'll certainly be working toward that. And I think, you know, the more community involvement we have, I think the better we'll all feel about moving forward with this,
Absolutely.
so.
Okay.
Great.
Good.
So I didn't have anything else on my
So-
mind. anyway.
Okay, so I think one question that came up in the past week or so is, you know, Eversource is going through their rate adjustment period at this point in time.
Yep.
And I think we need to have a good feel on how competitive your product will be with the Eversource product, and what happens, or will we ever get into a situation where Eversource could be cheaper than what you would be providing? And what happens if we get into a situation like that?
Right. So, yeah, so a few things from that. So one thing that was interesting about the Eversource rate, as you noted, so that the new rate started February 1st at 8.285 is the new rate. And it would, for those who are taking default service from Eversource, pretty terrific rate because it included a 1.5 cent reconciling adjustment from a prior period. So in other words, the rate really should have been 9.785, but because they had over collected by a full penny and a half, they needed to credit that back to default service customers. We had, just as a sort of a fairly current comparison to market rates, it just happened that for one of our other aggregation clients in New Hampshire, we'd collected some indicative pricing. So just to kind of share that with you. So this happened to be tentatively for a May 2024 start. And so for a 6-month period, the rate was 8.38, which is just slightly higher than the Eversource rate. Again, heavily subsidized Eversource rate. And then an 18-month price, taking them out through November of 2025, just under 10 cents. It was like 9.8 cents for the 18-month rate. And when you look at, call it calendar month strips, they're coming in at about 10.7 cents for 12-month prices. So one of the things you asked is, is it possible that the program rate from time to time could be higher than the Eversource rate? And the answer is it can be. Yeah, typically one of the objectives of programs is rate stability, and so communities sometimes will look to lock in 2 or even 3-year terms, but understanding that they're looking for sort of savings over the period of the contract and over the life of the program. And so from time to time, because Eversource is setting rates every 6 months and the market tends to be volatile in New England, you can have periods of time when the utility rate is below the program rate. Now, for what it's worth, me and our experience in managing other programs is that, once the program is sort of up and running and participating consumers get comfortable with it, they really stop paying attention to the utility rate. And that's good. That's a positive. I mean, that's really the whole design of the program, is that it's being managed, it's being tended to, there's strong oversight over it, and you're always looking for, again, stable rates over a period of time. So even when you do have periods of the utility rate being below the program rate, there's minimal customer migration leaving the program. That's been our experience with managing, dozens of programs.
And so, I mean, there's obviously times of significant volatility. I mean, we were at 22 cents a kilowatt hour just a year ago. So we've dropped by over 50% in terms of where Eversource is. And it is highly unusual for them to have that type of a carry forward into the rates, and kind of caught the market a little bit by surprise in terms of where things ended up. Should have been around 10 cents, is down to the 8.23 or 8.25. But when you take a look at the landscape in terms of the market right now, natural gas is trading at almost under $2 a decatherm. And the cost of natural gas right now, when adjusted for inflation, is actually lower than it was from 2010 to 2020, which is kind of looked back as being kind of like the Goldilocks period. And so the reason I say all that is because, you know, there's a decision to make for the committee, the town council, in terms of what the goals might be. You know, we think we're pretty close to a market bottom. There's only so much more give that the market has before natural gas producers lose so much money that they stop producing, stop pulling out of the ground, and then that turns the market around, and we've kind of missed that window. And I think we're getting close to that right now. And so when we look at these programs, similar to our experience in Massachusetts, you know, we've gone out for, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, and as a result, a lot of our clients missed the run up to 25 cents and 32 cents a kilowatt hour. We're paying the 9 cents. And there had been times, as Stuart mentioned, where that 9 cents was abutting where the National Grid or Eversource rate was. But over time, that rate stability, especially in such a volatile environment, is really important. So we could make a decision, you could make a decision, we want to track the Eversource rate. We could go out every 6 months and, many times, almost all the time, we're going to do better than the Eversource rate if we do that. But you're giving up something in terms of your market timing, and you're kind of offering a similar product to what we're already getting from the utility company if we're just doing it every 6 months. And that's what I think needs to be emphasized in terms of that rate stability, so.
Okay. So the 1.5 cent credit, I hadn't heard that. I didn't know that little.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it really kind of took everybody by surprise. We were actually at a meeting in Francistown when the rate was announced, and both of us couldn't believe. We thought someone was reading the wrong article from the wrong year. But yeah, once we found out that there was that carry forward involved, it explained why there was such a drop from where we expected rates to be, right around that 10-cent level. And you see that too with Unitil, who tracks the same periods typically as Eversource. I think they're at 10.12 or something like that for the same period, but without the carry forward.
Does that carry forward have to be paid off, so to speak, by Eversource in the next 6 months? Or will it continue on?
No, they're intending to take care of that in that 6 month period.
The other thing that goes for this period as well is that, this is what we call kind of the spring-summer period that this follows, right? So our highest costs are typically condensed to the winter cycle, and you're going to typically see that August to January rate be the more expensive cycle for the year. So depending upon where our timing comes up in terms of our launch, at midpoint this year, we will likely see an escalation from 8.25 to maybe 10, 11 cents a kilowatt hour, even if the market holds, because of the months that winter rate contains, being November, December, January. So.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to the committee. We'll just run through everybody. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I'm going to start. We'll start with Paul.
Two questions. Where are you in terms of getting New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission approval for the town of Londonderry plan?
So we haven't filed the plan because we first have to go through the 2 public hearings. That has to be completed before we can file the plan with the commission.
And what's the typical time period for approval?
It's about 60 days. Once we file, we've got a number of approvals already. I'd like to tell you that, they get it out really fast. They have 60 days, and we typically see it at day 59, day 60, So.
You made a comparison of what you think the market is now to Eversource's default rate.
Mm-hmm.
Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire came out at a rate of 8.1 cent.
Yep.
And there's no carry forward or any other kind of things. You care to comment why it's so low?
Well, they set the rate so that it was below Eversource, and so, I mean, they're, in essence, their own supplier, and so they have a reserve fund that they can tap into if they need to in order to achieve a rate that they desire to offer. I don't know if they've tapped into that reserve fund, but fact is, it's a below market rate, so it'd be difficult to offer that rate without tapping into the reserve fund.
And I think if you read the comments of CPC&H in the media, in the papers at the time when they set that rate, they talked about the carry forward and how much difficulty that created. But a good comparison in terms of where they are now versus where they were last year vis-a-vis these reserves. Last year, when they announced their first 6-month cycle, they were at 15 cents and change versus Eversource at 22 cents. Had we gone out to the market at that point in time for that same 6-month period, we would have been at about 9 cents a kilowatt hour in terms of the base rate. And they say, even in the newspaper articles, that there was a hefty reserve margin that they collected because the savings gap was so large that they built up their reserves during that period of time. But, as a ratepayer in Londonderry, that would have been an additional, 50%, 15 cents. That's an additional 70 some odd percent that they were paying through that program for those reserves. Whereas with our program, the base rate is what the suppliers offer us plus our 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour. So.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Joy? Ann?
Yeah, I'm just curious, and maybe you've talked about this and I just didn't hear it. When Eversource wants to raise the rates, they have to go to the Public Utilities Commission, and there's always a PUC advocate there, or ombudsperson, right, who's supposed to be representing the public interest and asking questions as to why the rate's going to be increased. Now, with you all, is there any such role or person that sort of puts the brakes on what your rates are?
Well, our rates
or
are,
views?
yeah, I mean, our rates are always dictated by the market at the time, so whatever the market's bearing at that point in time, we're working with you. We don't automatically put you into a new rate. We work with the Energy Committee, we work with the Town Council, and the decision's made in terms of what the offerings are at the time we decide to go out to the market. So the Town Council, plays that role kind of, I guess, as the consumer advocate.
But I think importantly, just to amplify one point, is every time we're doing a competitive solicitation, so we're collecting prices from multiple suppliers,
Yeah.
and we'll present all those prices to you so you can see them all. And if you like what you see, then typically the town is selecting the lowest price offering, picking a term. So we aren't setting the prices, but we're soliciting prices on a competitive basis.
Okay, that's the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in terms of the ombudsman, I mean, they're a monopoly, and that's why, they have that assigned individuals, because they're before these programs, they were the only game in town, so to speak. So.
No, but that individual works for the Public Utilities Commission. They don't work for Eversource.
Correct. They work for the Office of Consumer Advocacy. Yeah.
Right. And so when you come to us and you say, well, here's a variety of different rates, why wouldn't everybody naturally say, well, we want the lowest rate?
Right.
Who wants to pay a higher rate and you can pay a lower rate?
Well, I'll give you one example. I mean, we, and this wouldn't necessarily apply to Londonderry. I don't see this happening here, but we were onboarding a fairly new supplier who was experienced in serving commercial contracts in New England, but this was their first foray into serving a municipal aggregation program. And so we invited them to bid. They bid. They had the lowest price. The town opted not to select them because they were brand new to the aggregation space, and they were more comfortable selecting one of the second highest price, a company who had been doing it for 6 or 7 years.
So there could be a variety of different factors
Yeah.
that go into it.
Yeah, I mean, another example, and again, this doesn't happen too often, because we try to create the contract for Londonderry and then ask the suppliers to utilize our own paper. But sometimes there's a disagreement on a material term. The supplier says, we're not going to match that term. And we come back, we talk to you, you say, you might still want to invite them to bid into the process. And then depending upon how close the rates are, you might say, it's worth that premium, it's not worth that premium. And, they might be the lowest provider because they don't have that additional security or customer protection, so.
Interesting. No, that's helpful. I appreciate that. Thanks.
All set?
Yeah, I am.
John?
All set.
You're all set.
All set.
I'm all set.
Just to follow up on that last discussion, seems to me another choice that we'd be presented with is, do we want a lower rate for 6 months or a slightly higher rate for 18 months, right?
Yep.
And that's another, a more likely thing that we would face, right?
That's right, and so we would be, anytime we going out to bid, we'd be asking suppliers to provide multiple terms, you know, run the gamut of 6 or 7 different term lengths for you to consider.
And so when we're analyzing the marketplace, depending upon where the curves are, you know, if we were looking at pricing in September of 22 when prices were through the roof, you know, we'd be advocating for the shortest possible term contracts. You know, but now we're kind of at the reverse end of the pendulum, where we've got, you know, significantly low rates, and we might have to make a decision to give up short-term savings, but we think we're going to be able to capture long-term larger savings as a result of that trade-off.
Then just a couple of contractual questions. We can't really go too far without PUC approval, but are we going to ultimately enter into a contract with you, or is that plan our contract?
So we already have the baseline consulting agreement in place. So the next contract that you would enter would be with the supplier that the committee of the town council has approved to move forward with. So if it's Constellation, BP, Engie, they provide us with a 6-month rate or a 12-month rate or an 18-month rate. You all approve, you decide to move forward, you give your designee signatory authority. That would be the next contract that would be signed for this program. So the plan is really, just think about it in terms of our guideposts, in terms of the approval we get from the PUC, what we're capable of doing in this program. And as Stuart's mentioned in our discussions previously, we try to keep these plans in somewhat general terms. We don't want to be specific, and that's really advised from our experience in other states. Massachusetts, for instance, anytime you want to change your plan right now, it takes up to 2 years to get approval from their version of the PUC down there. And it started off the same as New Hampshire, where it was 60 days, get your approval. It went without, you know, much fanfare. But over time, there's more and more hurdles to get past. And now a new entrant or just someone trying to change the plan has to go through all these hoops and wait all this time. And so the reason we want to make ourselves a little bit, you know, general in terms of our goals within the plan doesn't mean you can't do what you want within the boundaries of that general plan. But we have to go back and ask fewer permissions down the line. We're doing ourselves a future favor by kind of expanding those goalposts in terms of what we can and can't do.
Thank you.
All set? Jeff?
2 things. One, I think you mentioned this tonight. You guys are making revenue, not profit. Your profits, your business. You're making 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour.
I think 1.5 tenths of a cent per kilowatt hours. I think, yeah.
Which is basically the same.
Yep.
And on average, how many bids do you get? Or like and there's 2 parts to that question.
Sure.
Is it how many companies and how many contracts? Like if you get, you know, company A will give you 3 options or 4 options, and company B you get 2 or 3 options, and there's 10 companies. Does that make sense? Like what is a package of options tend to look like in your experience?
So it's kind of like I guess two parts to that answer, right? So so one in terms of experience, in terms of what in a mature market, what a bid package would look like,
Right.
and then what's the reality that we're facing here in New Hampshire right now. So one thing that has not cleared in terms of a hurdle that we need to really expand this market for choice is the fact that the purchase of receivables settlement has not been reached yet between the utility companies. Purchase of receivables, just for a quick return, I think a few meetings ago, was the program that guarantees the credit for every customer in Londonderry. The utility, for a fee, will go and tell the supplier that we choose, we will guarantee the credit for every customer in this program, you know, for a small fee that they charge that supplier. And that's how, you know, Massachusetts, New York, Ohio, and all these other mature markets work. We don't have that in place right now. And so as of today, this market has one competitive supplier that's actively pricing the market, and we hope to have a second soon. So we've got First Point Power, who's willing to price us without purchase of receivables in place. And then we've gotten word that Direct Energy, by the time we're up and running, will likely be our second. We were hoping that the purchase of receivables settlement would be concluded, I don't know, back in like November or October. Unfortunately, there's a couple more items that have yet to be resolved. Once that happens, we think we're going to see about 4 or 5 new suppliers enter the marketplace because they've got that comfort now knowing that there's no credit risk with the customers they're serving. Because this is a universal access program. So every ratepayer in Londonderry has a right to be in this program. No one can be turned away based upon credit. And so that's a big kind of blind hurdle that suppliers have to overtake or undertake without purchase of receivables in place.
So you said you're expecting 4 or 5 more, so that would make a total of 6 to 7 total?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And then for the second part of your question, what are the options that they have? It really depends on what we're asking for. I think we're going to have kind of our base default rate, of course, but then we're going to have, buffet options 1, 2, and 3 that have different levels of renewable inclusion possibly, and that'll all be managed on the same contract. We'll have one contract with one supplier. It won't be multiple suppliers handling your aggregation. So
It's like negotiating insurance for a company. You've got a lot of levers to.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, these company you mentioned, First Point Energy, they're not power producers, right? They are, who are they?
So some of them are. So First Point is not, but Direct Energy is. First Point is just taking title to power in the market and then reselling it. But Direct Energy owns assets throughout the country. Constellation owns assets throughout the country. BP, NG, EDF own assets. And the reason that that's important, and again, kind of another decision when we advise, what we're looking at, you asked that question about what may make us make a decision for one supplier over another based on cost. Well, knowing that a supplier has wholesale assets behind the rates that they're offering is really important from a risk standpoint, because when the markets go up, they can never hedge us 100%. There's always going to be that buffer where it might be 5% or 10% that they're buying and selling in the marketplace. Well, if we have a situation like we had back in 2022, and you saw the big freeze in Texas back in 2018, a lot of suppliers went out of business because they were strictly on the financial side of the transaction. They had no generation assets. And so if things get volatile and you have a generation asset, you might be losing money on your retail position, but you're making it up on the wholesale position. So it creates kind of a perfect hedge in place to really secure their position in the retail market.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get clear in my own mind who these people are, because basically, if you're saying some of them are not power producers, then they're in a position of purchasing in a contract for a particular amount of energy.
Yep.
To then be moved on and sold here. Okay.
Yep.
So the other thing I'm concerned about is a lot of volatility.
Yep.
Going on right now. Okay. We have power plants, natural gas power plants that are shutting down. Okay. We got power plants over to Newington that potentially can run on fuel, or they can run on gas, and some of them aren't even running. And then we have all this with the Twin State, which has also been approved, but that's going to be a big thing moving forward. So we got a lot of moving parts here, and we got a lot of power producers that are trying to figure out what they're going to do, whether they're going to be in the power production business or not, whether they're going to take a plant and convert it over to natural gas or not,
Yep.
Whether they're going to go with offshore wind or not.
Yep.
So all of this, we're trying to figure out whether it's worthwhile for us to move forward with all these moving parts that we don't even know what direction they're going in, okay? So, the cost of natural gas has dropped down. That's up to a lot of people making decisions all the way back to Texas, but and the supply of natural gas to New Hampshire is an issue, or has been an issue. But right now, natural gas is probably the biggest fuel that we have under the situation we're now in.
Yes.
We may be looking at wind and offshore wind, looking to the future, but, that's going to be 10, 15, 20 years in the future before that gets online. So I'm just a little concerned with all the moving parts, and we're trying to figure out that you folks, and don't get me wrong, you know what you're doing, but that this is going to be a good move. I guess we're going to move forward anyway, and I hope we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Just have a couple questions.
Sure.
The resident here, the homeowner,
Yeah.
they can opt in or opt out at any point, right?
That's correct. It's supposed to act exactly the way that the relationship with the utility does. So come and go as they please.
So, as a town councilor, I'm asking a question. If we bring this to the people now, what would stop them from all opting out because Eversource is lower? And then in August, if Eversource becomes higher, opting in. And basically you have, I don't know, just a handful of people on it right now, and then in August, everybody jumps in. I'm just trying to look out to see, like, if they can opt in and opt out at any point, what would stop them from saying, no, we don't want to go in right now because Eversource is lower?
Yeah, I think, it's an excellent question. So
Yeah.
I think it's, what we try to do is, particularly on the launch of a program, is we don't want to be launching with a rate that's above the utility rate.
Right.
At launch, it's so critically important. I think
Yeah.
that's an immediate turnoff for someone
Right.
who's first being introduced to the program.
Yeah.
So once the program's up and running, it becomes much less important. There's more emphasis on
Right.
rate stability and so forth, like we discussed earlier. So, no, we would strongly advise that we're not launching a program unless and until we know what the utility rate is, and that we're able to offer a program rate that beats that.
Okay, so when you come to the town council, that you guys would come with a rate that's either equal or lower? That's what you're saying?
Lower. Yeah,
Okay,
lower.
okay.
Yeah.
Then I'm just thinking in my head, how am I going to advocate for my residents here that, yeah, this is a
right-
good
right
program.
out of the gate, yeah,
So-
it's higher, yeah.
So thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, I mean, normally that's like an
How
in-contract
long is that
issue for
Yeah.
a longer-term position.
Yeah.
So, as Stuart mentioned,
Yeah.
we never want to start an aggregation above the utility rate, right? And the idea is if we think there's a good entry point,
Yep.
we might want to go longer term. But if we go the longer term that we go, the more
Yeah.
risk that we have, that there'll be periods where the utility might drop down for a 6-month period below the rate that
Right.
we've secured. So,
Thank you.
Question, follow-up, just refresh my memory.
Sure.
This is an opt-out program, correct?
correct.
Yeah.
Right, so what that means is all the residents in the town of Londonderry will automatically go onto this power supply program, okay? So thus the strategy of making sure that you're below Eversource and all that, but they can always opt out at any time. is my
Correct,
understanding.
correct.
And
I just want to ask a question. I'm sure the opting out involves a process, right, to make it a little bit more difficult to opt out than it is to just automatically be signed in. But I guess I'm curious, it makes, this sounds like credit card company. Okay, you sign up with us and we're gonna give you this great interest rate of, 2%. You're gonna love it. And I guess I'm wondering, so how long does this lower than the utility rate last? When you launch this, is this 6 months, a year?
So a great question. And so I kind of answer it in two parts. So one, this program really came about as a result of the very type of bad action in the market that you're talking about, where you had companies come in, they say, sign up for your home. I'm North American Power, whoever. I'll give you this gift card. You can go shop at the mall.
Yeah, great.
And you
$100.
sign up, and then 3 months or 6 months later, after that rate expires, it doubles. Okay, and you stop paying attention. You went on vacation with your family. You come back, and you've given all your savings back, and then some. This program is meant, to have consumer protections in mind, but to also give those consumers the same benefits that the large manufacturers, the large commercial enterprises have had here in New Hampshire for some time. And I think, the benefit of allowing this access is from the data that we've seen on the large commercial side, where 92% of our larger marketplace takes advantage of non-Eversource rates and have been doing that now for almost 2 decades, So I think the proof is there. I mean, really, when you think about how Eversource goes and purchases, they've got like a little alarm clock. There's, picture someone in a room. The alarm clock goes off. It's time to buy. That alarm clock doesn't care what the market's doing at the time. It just says, hey, Eversource, it's time to buy. Someone hits a button, they make their purchase, they submit their rate request to the PUC, and that's that. At least with this opportunity, you're doing some management. You're looking at the market. You're taking the temperature in terms of what the opportunities might be, what the potential is, where we think it is relative to historic periods. And right now, like I said, we're kind of near a market bottom, if not at the current market bottom. So that gives you some leeway. And as Stuart mentioned earlier, with the budget certainty, budget stability, if we can go and lock in a rate now for a 3-year period and get below either this or the next Eversource rate cycle, we're going to be in a really great place for Londonderry, because a lot of those things that caused that run up in 21 and 22, whether it's inflation, war abroad, lack of natural gas pipeline, all these, and increasing energy demand as a result of the transition, everybody going to heat pumps and electrification, all those things are still prevalent in the marketplace. Really what's caused this massive dip that we've had are back-to-back extremely warm winters, right? I was driving over here today and it was 36 degrees out on a night in February, right? That's very unusual for the Northeast, and that's where the big sell-off has come from. That's not going to last forever, so there's opportunities that we can take advantage of that, Eversource, going with just increments of 6 months, can't give the ratepayers of Londonderry.
What's the longest contract you ever did?
3 years
Yeah.
of, maybe slightly longer. I mean, not much longer than that.
And usually that 3 years, has been dictated by, town charters that, they have a certain maximum that they can go to without additional approvals.
What are suppliers willing to offer?
Probably 5.
Okay.
We see that in the large commercial context, 5, sometimes maybe 6.
What percentage?
And we're going to
I
John.
was just,
Let's
oh,
finish
and
up.
see,
Let's finish up with John.
How often have you seen, in your past experience, Eversource have an accounting blip like they had with this 1.5 cents?
Well, I'm going by memory. I can't recall one this large. And I think honestly, they have a formula that they follow. So there was nothing untoward that they did. But I think what happened, and I dug into the docket, and unfortunately Eversource wasn't forthcoming with details to explain why, and for some reason the commission didn't ask them, can you explain this? When the rate's
good
going
news. It was
down,
good news,
well, I asked questions. Okay, this is great. But I think it was just a function of they're coming out of a period when rates were so high. And so when you have any kind of customer fluctuation or unexpected usage, when rates are that high, you create a larger pool of money than you ordinarily would. And so it was just a function of a really high price market that created a larger than normal bucket of money that had to be returned to customers. I think that's all it was. And so if we don't experience that kind of historically high rates again, we may not see that kind of adjustment again.
So they happen. It's just, the size was material this go around. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, again, looking to your point about being lower than Eversource at launch.
Yep.
Okay, and extending out, we have 2 public meetings, we have get past budget issues with the town council, 60 days to get plan approval. Are we looking to be out past the 6 months that Eversource will be locked in with this lower rate at launch?
Yeah.
If not at the very end of the current rate cycle. So we'll have an idea in terms of where the next Eversource rates are going to be by either the last week of June or to the second week of July is typically when we're going to find out, what they're thinking, what their submission is to the PUC. And that's gonna line up with our timelines in terms of when we start to go get bids and we're evaluating opportunities.
And would we know at that point too if there are any more accounting discoveries to be taken into account?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when Eversource files its rate with the commission, and it includes any of those accounting adjustments.
Yep.
So, so you're reasonably confident at launch that we would be able to put something in front of the consumer that's below Eversource?
Yeah, and we've got, kind of a synergistic relationship in that. Obviously, we want to continue to be your consultant, and you want to make sure that the program is offering maximized benefit from the onset to the customers. So it's critical in our eyes to start with a number that's below the utility, and so waiting to find out what that new rate is going to be is helpful to us, so, in determining that.
I guess my last question isn't for you two guys, but just maybe for the committee, is our role here 12 months down the road? We're past launch, we're out there, and all of a sudden, our price, accounting blip, whatever reason, is higher than the Eversource price at that
Yep.
point in time. Is our role as a committee to be an advocate for the residents of Londonderry and put something out to everybody saying, guess what, there's no penalties to jump off our community program right now. You might want to consider going to XYZ or looking, this is the time to shop for the next 6 months, and then come back to us when we're competitive again. Is that our role down the road? Or and maybe that's balanced with some of the story about stability and all that stuff. But is that our role, or are we basically advocating, are we the eyes and ears of the consumer that doesn't watch these rates once they're in place?
So in my opinion, we are. We're here for the citizens of Londonderry. We hope we have a mutually beneficial program. I think that's what Bart's talking about, but obviously we're here to protect the interests of the citizens of Londonderry.
So that by and of itself would suggest that whenever these two gentlemen come back with rates that are higher than Eversource, they'll be aware that that it's probably, I don't know if duty is the right word, our responsibility certainly to not only be aware of that, but to alert our consumers ultimately that that's happened.
Yeah, we're, always going to be forthcoming in terms of where we are versus the Eversource rate. And like I said, we have every interest to make sure that we're starting this in the best possible light. And, the carry forward makes it difficult to launch right now, right? But we've got a lot of stuff on the timetable moving forward that bring us out to when that next rate cycle is going to be. The other thing that helps us is there's probably not going to be a ton of catalyst over the course of the summer that's going to move the market in significant ways. And this next rate from Eversource is going to be the winter rate, which gives us a little bit of a timing advantage. Because if we want to go for a longer term contract, 12-month or an 18-month, we're going to be able to use those spring and summer months when Eversource is only considering the immediacy of that, September, October, November, December, January. And that's going to give us a pricing advantage right then and there. And so the committee, the town council has to decide, do we just want to continue to peg ourselves versus Eversource every 6 months, and we'll likely have some savings there, or we could extend those savings, but then run the potential risk that if we have another warm winter, maybe Eversource comes out in February with another low rate. So we're going to have that, as a question for the town council and the committee in terms of what our objectives are. But I think if we're always going at 6-month intervals to always try to guarantee that we're a sliver below Eversource, I think we're doing a disservice to the program and the residents, because we're just going to follow whatever fluctuations Eversource has. And so when we had 22 cents a kilowatt hour, our rate might have been at 20 cents a kilowatt hour. It's still slightly better, but we're not giving them, the opportunity to avoid that type of significant sticker shock. And I think that's what the Massachusetts program has proven with some of these longer term contracts, is that stability is appreciated by the residents and the ratepayers, because they don't have to be subject to whatever the market is every 6-month interval. So.
Is it safe to say that if we take this position at advising residents in town of Londonderry, that will be reflected in future bids coming down the road?
I think
where
so.
They may not even bid at all.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to deal with this kind of environment. Is that a safe statement?
That is a safe statement. And another thing that comes to my mind, because there was a community we worked with in Massachusetts where this situation came up. And so they were thinking about, to what extent did they want to alert community members that, hey, our program rate is now above the utility rate at that time. And one of the discussion points that came up was some concern about, okay, if, if we're really good at getting Mrs. Smith off of the program, but then for whatever reason, she's not paying attention to the next 6 month cycle, and she really gets hammered because now all of a sudden she's stuck on an Eversource rate at 20 cents. So, they put out, what they ended, they put out an information piece, but they didn't go sort of out of their way to really try to get people off the program. Because the other point you raise is a concern of suppliers in the next round. They make adjustments based on customer migration in the program.
Right.
And so,
I had one quick question about the suppliers.
Yep.
I thought that you said that you were limited to these 2 suppliers at this point in time. Are you able to right now go out to, let's say, Constellation, BP, NG, all of those players that you mentioned? You can go to all of those right now?
So they're active in aggregation. So we work with them in Massachusetts. But the issue in New Hampshire is until the purchase of receivable settlement is concluded, we have 2 one right now active, and then a second one coming into the market. The issue is without purchase of receivables guaranteed for these suppliers, they're going in blind in terms of serving the town of Londonderry. They don't know who's paying their bills, who's not paying their bills. They have to take on everybody. And so right now we are handcuffed until that issue is resolved.
And who resolves that issue?
Utility Commission.
The Public Utilities Commission.
The
Yeah.
PUC?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Who's the other party? The generators?
So right now you're talking about the 2 suppliers that we have.
No, we're trying to come up with an agreement regarding purchase of receivables.
Right.
That agreement
sorry,
is
the utility
between
company.
whom and whom?
Yes, sorry. The utilities had to go and file their purchase of receivable plans with the Public Utilities Commission, and the Public Utilities Commission came back and had some questions and some items that were unresolved, and that's why this has been elongated. So our kind of previous mile marker, if you might recall, I think was September of 22 now. The time's flying by. September of 22 was when purchase of receivables rules had been established. And then we were hoping that by middle of 2023, that all of the plans would be accepted by the Public Utilities Commission. And here we are, 7 months later, and that's still unresolved. But that's going to be an issue in the market, until that's fortified. But once that's fortified, once that's in place, the Public Utilities Commission has come to an agreement with the utilities, then we will see, as we mentioned before, an increase of about 5-6 new suppliers coming to the marketplace that are serving markets to the south of us.
I have a question, that is, in regards to other towns, even in Massachusetts, or more particularly in New Hampshire, I understand you're required to have a public information meeting before you
Yes.
move forward with this. And if we're looking to simply have a public meeting at a town council meeting, unfortunately, rarely we have anybody show up, okay? So I'm just wondering how this has been handled in other towns in regards to explaining to the general citizenry about this, because obviously if the PUC thinks it's a requirement, it is important. For instance, I've seen some towns in New Hampshire, correct me if I'm wrong, that have decided to put it on a warrant article so that the voters can actually say they want to move forward or not.
Yep.
Have you seen that in any other towns?
Yes. Yeah. The warrant article is based upon town governance. So towns of a certain size or a certain governance structure have to go to town meeting day because the select board is unable to approve this program on their own. Because of your town council governance and town manager format, you're not subjected to that requirement.
Okay. Well, obviously, my concern is that, that the general public knows that moving forward, that they're locked into it initially. They can opt out of it. That is true. Yeah. But I just personally feel that we have a responsibility to make sure that the general public
Oh, absolutely.
understands this, you know?
Yeah.
And
So,
and unfortunately, if we have it at a warrant, town council meeting, maybe nobody's even gonna show up.
So we're gonna have 2 meetings, and if we have to have more, I don't have any problem with having more either. The first one will be with the town council, and the idea there is it's a public forum, and get the town council's questions answered, and get their buy-in, assuming that they're gonna wanna move forward with it. We'll have a second public hearing. My guess is at the high school cafeteria on a Saturday morning, and it's gonna be up to us as a committee to get the word out.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And if I may add to that, so the,
Oh, he's,
We'll make it work.
he's responding.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. So, and then in addition to that, so the public hearings are for the public to have any questions, comments on the plan, right? So
Right.
then the plan goes to the commission approves it. So, and then at some point after that, we'll be getting pricing, showing it to the committee and so forth. When and if the committee or the designee, signs a contract and we're about to launch, well, then you can do a whole host of information sessions of your time and choosing and format and so forth, because that's when you actually have some real information to share with your constituents about here's the price, here's the term, here's the utility service rate, here's how this all works. I mean, it's the closer in time to the actual launch, that's when you really want to be getting the messaging out.
Thank you.
Just one question, is there any way, or is there a document that lays out sort of these are the advantages, these are the disadvantages for your program? Because if people are going to talk about it at the town council meeting, and if, hopefully it would be open for public comment
Well,
in the town council meeting, it would be useful to have some kind of document, either something that you guys put together and draft and we work on, that lays out the advantages and disadvantages of
Right,
such a
so-
system.
That's right. So I'm going to be preparing a series of slides to be used at the public hearing. And as a footnote, I mean, the public hearing, while it's being conducted either, I guess, just before the start of the official council meeting, it's a separate public hearing. So the purpose of that hearing is to take questions, respond to any questions that residents may have.
So it's not a part of the town council meeting, because we have certain rules of order in terms of public comment period, and I just wouldn't want it set up so that you
That may
give
be
a presentation. Let me just finish. So that you give a presentation and there's no public comment period.
Yeah, no, it'll be, I hope I'm not speaking over you, Lynn, but the design of the public hearing in other New Hampshire communities we've done is they officially open up the public hearing. We
Okay.
do a presentation. There's lots of Q&A for any residents who are there and have those questions. After all questions have been answered, then they close the public hearing and then they conduct their normal
Regular.
council business.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lock us into format at this point in time, but I think that's something that we'll have to talk through with the council and with the town manager. But I see, but it is a public hearing, so there will be time for public comment. I mean, that's the whole point of having it.
Right. But it's different as to whether or not it's part of the town council meeting or it's not a part of the town council meeting. I mean, those are two different types of
Yep,
meetings,
yep.
so.
And,
The other question I just wanted to ask was if there's an emphasis from you all to consider, look at, or encourage renewables as sources of energy. I mean, do you try to focus on renewables as sources of energy?
Well, so, I mean, we work for the town of Londonderry, right? So it's all dependent upon the direction we receive from you. So
Yeah.
we can go as far along with renewables if you like. We can work on deals with renewable generators in the state that sleeve through a third-party supplier like a Constellation to provide us with local renewable generation. Or we go the other way in terms of the maximized savings, and you decide, well, for these renewable programs, we can have the opt-ins, right? So a lot of our communities also say, we think our residents want to go with the maximized savings rate, but for those clients, those residents that do not, we'll give them opt-in options 1, 2, and 3, and that might be 25, 50, or 100% renewables. It's important to note, for those options, especially if savings is really important to the launch of a program, having the renewable options as kind of the opt-in allows us some flexibility because those are typically going to put us at or above where the utilities are. Because remember, the utilities don't have to have necessarily those levels of renewables baked into their rates. And so when a customer can make an informed decision on their opt-in card and says, okay, well, Eversource is at 12 cents and I'm going to be at 12.5, but I'm getting 50% renewables.
Right,
I'm going to check that. I accept that. I'm going to move forward with that. It's easier to sometimes go that route because you've got informed decision from the clients. Now, some communities say, no, we want our base rates to have 30% or 50% renewable inclusion. And again, we work for you, so we go out and we give you those options for the committee and the town council to consider.
I have another question, because this part of it goes way over my
Sure.
head. The utilities produce the power, okay?
They just buy it.
And there's, no, the utilities.
Yeah, they don't even produce anymore. They're just buying themselves.
Oh, they're buying themselves.
Yep.
Okay, so how do you know with the distribution that's coming over the lines that you're getting renewable?
So first off, there's a state mandate for a renewable portfolio standard, right? So right out of the gate, you're getting a certain specified portion of every kilowatt hour that you buy in your home. Percentage has to come from renewables as mandated by the state. So right out of the gate, we're already less, than 100%, natural gas or coal or oil. What is that, like 15% right now, I think, for the state of New Hampshire? 15%. So when we were deciding how much renewable inclusion to add, our baseline is already 15% as this kind of the standard offer, if you will, and we're adding voluntary purchases on top of that. And so in order to comply with that, we need to see the renewable certificates, the certifications from the supplier that guarantees us that they're buying from these sources. They're retiring those RECs on behalf of our aggregation. And that's how that works. So we have backup data to provide to you, that the town will have that to see for those programs. Okay, these are national wind RECs. These are New Hampshire Class 1 or Class 2. This is hydro. This is landfill gas. We have the backup data when we're making those additional purchases to ensure anybody that asks those questions, well, where is it coming from? Here's the certificates that we bought as a result of this program.
However, if you offer a power supply without any renewables, you can beat the state rate because
Well, so again, Eversource, just like us, every supplier has to provide a minimum of 15%, and that escalates a certain percentage every year. But Eversource and us, if we start just base rate, maximized our savings, it would have 15% renewable inclusion as a result of the RPS. And I know it's a little confusing,
But the distribution is the wires that are going into people's houses. How can you guarantee that renewable is going through that wire?
Great question. So I can't tell an electron where to go, right?
Yeah.
So everything is handled in the certificate marketplace, right? So if I own a solar generator and I'm producing 1 million kWh a year,
Yep.
I get a certain number of renewable energy credits that are assigned to that production. Now, when you buy my output from that solar generator, if you're not buying the renewable energy certificate with that generation, you can't lay claim to buying green power. It's precisely because of what you just mentioned. I have to buy the certificate that they're issued along with that power. I then retire that certificate, and that's my proof that I've now bought green electricity. So they can't go and sell to me, sell to somebody else, and everybody's laying claim to buying all this green energy if they don't have that certificate that goes with that project.
I'm still confused, but that's
it's all,
okay.
it's an all paper transaction.
Yeah, just like banking.
Yeah.
Yeah, electrons are electrons.
Yeah, so the way I look at it, I don't know if this will help or not, but you go to the gas station, you're pumping gas, it could come from Pennsylvania, it could come from Saudi Arabia, it
Yep.
could come from Alaska.
Right.
You don't know,
Right.
because those sources all go into the pipe, but you don't have any control over what comes out of the pipe.
Right.
But you can
It's the same, I see the same thing with renewables. You don't know what's coming out, you're just paying to put it in.
Nor do you really know if you
Paying to put
pay
it
for
in.
premium, do you really get paid? Okay, just throw
I'm
that out
sorry,
there.
I opened up a can of worms.
I don't know if that makes sense or not, but you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, you don't
can't
know what you're
control
getting.
If you think you're getting clean power coming into your house,
Yeah,
There's a lot of dirty power mixed in there.
Yeah, yeah.
You got dirty
Okay.
electrons and clean electrons coming, whether you like it or
Yeah.
not.
Okay, I get it now.
So,
Chairman. Down here.
yes, sir.
You shared with us the launch flyer, I think it was, that Hudson used.
Yep.
Do we have from our team here examples of documents that you've supplied or maybe other towns have used at launch to educate their folks? Even templates and things that we can start looking at?
Be happy, no, thank you for asking. Be happy to send some samples, send it to the committee. Yeah, I don't think we've done that yet, but be happy to do that.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that the Hudson document was powerful stuff. It was, the production values on it were outstanding.
Yep.
It had some graphs in there that gave the more wonky out there an opportunity to look at price comparisons over time and things of that sort. Maybe talk a little bit to the stability issues that you guys talked about. It even had a section that addressed the medium to small commercial company that might be interested in switching over to this kind of a program. So we actually might want to share, if we haven't, I don't know if you guys have, it's a community power document.
CPC.
But we might want to share that over, because that would be, I think, something we would aim at, and it would go to Ray's point of how do we educate the consumers beyond
Absolutely.
they're not showing up at a town meeting. You know, that, it was a very readable flyer.
Yep. Absolutely.
Do you have that?
Yeah, you should have it.
Okay, I'll check.
I have a copy, I can give it to him right now.
Okay, that's fine. Fine, any other questions about community power aggregation? If not, we'll move on to solar group net metering.
Oh, excellent. All right, so this one's even more complicated than the last, so buckle your seatbelts.
Tell us where we're at today, Bart, just to set the stage, and then what the proposed changes are.
Sure. So right now, Londonderry is involved in group net metering through a hydro program that Freedom Energy Logistics administers. And so what that means is that Londonderry has pledged their usage to a hydro dam operating a group net metering pool, and I'll get into all these definitions in a minute. And they receive quarterly rebate checks as a result of that pledge. Now, what's the importance of the pledge and how does this program work? Take you back in history a little bit. Group net metering is a program that the legislature came up with here in New Hampshire, similar to other states like Massachusetts and Maine and New York all have different variations of this. But the idea behind the program is to incentivize and maintain new or existing renewable generation here in the state of New Hampshire. The legislature wanted to find a way to guarantee a purchaser in the marketplace for these renewable generators, that purchaser being the utility company in the load area that the generator is located in. So here we are in Eversource territory. You're partnered with a hydro dam in Eversource territory. Now, in order for the hydro dam to compel Eversource through the statute to buy their output, they have to have political subdivisions, towns, counties, cities, school districts as their virtual off-takers. This is an arbitrary requirement developed by the legislature, so they didn't just say to Eversource, you have to buy all production from 1 to 5 megawatt renewable generators. They wanted to create an additional step in the process, and so they've come up with this virtual offtake mechanism. And so you're not buying hydropower as the town of Londonderry. You're still in third-party supply contracts with your consultant and your supplier, as you have been for years. It's more of a thank you because you're the ticket to ride for that hydro dam to get their net metering tariff rate from Eversource. Without you in place and other communities, they would be subject to the wholesale marketplace and either selling into the real-time or day-ahead markets or potentially entering into a PPA with a retail utilizer. So this gives them slightly above market rates that they couldn't get access to otherwise. And again, as a result of that, they pay you a consideration for that. And your only contract requirement for that is that you promise them for the kilowatt hours that you've pledged that you will not, as a town, self-generate. You will not take those kilowatt hours off-grid and generate for yourself. And so we're in a short-term, I think it was a 5-year contract when we signed it. I think there's 2 or 3 years left on that agreement. And so one of the things that we're offering now as a result of more recent legislative change is that solar has entered the picture. Not just hydro, not just landfill gas, as we've been utilizing for our customers for years. There was a provision put in the statute years ago when Democrats and Republicans compromised on the expansion from 1 megawatt in generation up to 5 megawatts in generation for who's eligible. That compromise was that the generator had to be located within the municipality that they served unless that generator was built prior to January 1st, 2021, thereby killing the entire solar market. And that was done on purpose. So another compromise was reached under HB 315 2 years ago that said, we're going to do away with that jurisdictional requirement. So if you're, regardless of when you're built, all you have to do now is be in the same utility as the municipality, the political subdivision, and you can now participate in this program. And so solar has now come onto the marketplace, and they're asking for much longer term contracts. They're looking for 20-year contracts instead of the 5. Now, the reason for that is, whether it's hydro or landfill gas that we've had, they're already built. They have no investors, no bankers, no financiers to satisfy. There is no ROI on these programs for them. They're simply already in existence, and it's a better rate than they're getting in the market, so they're happy to do it, and they can take shorter-term contracts. The solar, on the other hand, needs the offtake in place for the 20 years of this program so they can go out and find the investment to go and build that array for $10, $15 million. They need to have that offtake in place. And so that's why they're asking for the 20 years, but they're offering you a higher compensation than what you get currently from the hydro program. And so right now you get half a penny per kilowatt hour for every kilowatt hour that is used in our hydro program. I think it works out to something in the neighborhood of about $7,000 a year. You guys, I think, have about 1 million kWh pledged into that program currently. So, sorry, million two, I think, 1.3 million. With the solar program, you'd be looking at a percentage of the default service rate. So I believe it starts at 5% of the default service rate. But when the default service rate gets above 15 cents a kilowatt hour, it goes to 7.5%. And when it goes to 20 cents a kilowatt hour, you max out at 10% of the standard offer rate, which at that point in time would be 2 cents a kilowatt hour if we found ourselves in a situation like last year. So you have higher upside. This program, admittedly, was looking really, really good last year when rates were at 22 cents and 20 cents. It's not looking great when I put a pro forma together for you right now compared against the 8.25 that Eversource is currently offering. But, this is only a moment in time, a 6-month period. We're talking over the next 20 years. We are going to have some significant periods of more volatility, a rate increase, and there is going to be an opportunity for higher compensation from Londonderry through this program than the static half a penny per kilowatt hour that you're currently getting under the hydro. We also offer a unique program in that because we kind of dominate the hydro marketplace, we're able to offer all of our municipal customers our Hydro Plus Solar program. So let's say that you guys said, this is great, let's sign up tomorrow. It would still take about 2 to 3 years to build this array that would be assigned to Londonderry and their group. That's because the interconnection queues right now behind Eversource are absolutely insane. Interconnection in terms of getting approval to interconnect to the grid, making sure the feasibility studies come out in a positive way. And so while you're waiting, no other program can give you rebates during that pendency period, but we can because we have the hydro, we have the landfill gas. So you get to remain on those programs until you seamlessly convert over in 2 years or 3 years once the array energizes. So it's a great way to monetize your electricity use. And, I have a lot of questions from customers saying, geez, we might have plans to put an array on the public safety complex in a few years. What do we do with that? And so typically my advice is don't go with 100% of your usage. Come in with something less than that. A lot of customers do about 50% of their usage that they pledge to the long-term solar program, and that gives them flexibility so that if they do have a scenario with, years down the road where they want to self-generate, they have that capability because they've still got some usage they left in reserve or left in the hydro program. So it's kind of a unique program with our Hydro Plus Solar, but I just had a meeting earlier today with a client in Manchester. We just signed Sullivan County a couple weeks ago to this program, and because the upside is there's a lot of interest. Massachusetts has been doing a program similar to this for a very long time, and almost, I think, every single one of our municipal customers in Massachusetts, Cambridge, Brookline, Newton, Lexington, Natick, Burlington, all have these programs in place for 20-year contracts. And again, it's a great revenue offset tool that they utilize. So you can't claim that you're buying renewable as a result of this, but some of my clients take the money that they earn from these programs and they buy voluntary renewable energy credits with them. So it can also be used as an energy efficiency fund, or you can use it to offset your taxes for your tax base. It's up to you, but it's an available pool of money. You're already enjoying it, but you can upgrade with the solar program.
So I guess my biggest question at this point in time is, we'll talk about this a little bit later in the meeting, but we're looking at kickstarting a solar program in town again.
Sure.
And let's say that happened 3 years down the road.
Yep.
And let's say we generated all the power that the town complexes would need for their usage. What would that do to us in terms of?
So I think if that's a possibility, we probably want to stay with the hydro program because it gives us that flexibility to come in and out. It's a lower remuneration rate, but you can line up your contract with the hydro to meet those planning needs. Let's say that we decided to move forward with a solar contract and we're at year 7, and all of a sudden these plans come to fruition. You move forward. At that point in time, we would have one compliance year, you and I both, because Freedom Energy Logistics stands as the administrator of this program. So we're kind of held to the same penalties as the town of Londonderry. If we're unable to find replacement offtake for your million kWh, then the penalty would be your expected remuneration from the program multiplied by the years left on the contract. So if you get $15,000 or $20,000 a year, and in year 7 you go to zero, it would be that million times the number of years left in the contract times that $15,000, $20,000 a year in terms of what the penalty could be. That could be offset if at any point in time the developer or Freedom Energy Logistics find replacement. So if it's 2 years deep, 3 years deep later, and we found that replacement, then you get a refund for any penalties that accrued as a result of that. What I've noticed in Maine and Massachusetts, which again are more mature markets with this, is that typically the program rewards early adopters with higher remuneration percentages. So over time, the available rebate percentage actually goes down. As more people get comfortable with the 20 years, comfortable with the program, understand it better, there's less incentive for the developers to offer those same rebates. So you'd be in a situation where if that did happen 10 years down the road, we would probably have a rebate percentage that was unavailable in that marketplace at that time. So it would actually be easier for us to find that replacement. The second thing is that there's a bill in the House right now that passed last year, both the House and the Senate, bipartisan bill sponsored by Senator Lang. It was eventually vetoed by the governor, but it sought to open the offtake universe to all ratepayers in the state, not just political subdivisions. If that happens, that's another advantage for you down the road, whereby the offtake universe is expanded. So we can't just call Derry or Merrimack. We can, call on businesses in town to see if they want to take the rebate money. It makes our job easier to find those replacement off-takers if the off-take universe is expanded, which I anticipate it will be at some point in time in the next few years.
Okay. And based on our current usage, what is the rebate program we're experiencing right now? How much money is involved, and what would you expect it to be if we went on the solar option?
So right now, I believe Londonderry is signed up for about 1.2 million kWh, and I think your takeaway from that is about $6,000 or $7,000 a year. It's not significant, but it's money coming in for using kWh. Under the solar program, not under the current EverSource rates at 8.25, but we were just at 12.79. I would expect that you'd see a steady, consistent increase over that of about double over the life of the deal in terms of your expectations. So
Not a lot of money, but
yeah, about $15,000 would be my expectation for Londonderry, and more if the school district joins. Sorry.
okay, I'll take questions around the board. If, we'll start with John. Any questions? Ron?
I'm good.
Right?
Most of that went over my head, but did you say that you have this product of hydro and landfill gas?
Hydro, landfill, and solar are three generation assets. What happens is generators hire us, Freedom Energy Logistics, to be the group administrator for this program. So we are tasked with finding off-takers and then handling all of compliance and then balancing the load. So that if a member leaves, it's our responsibility to go and find replacement usage for that group member pool. And at the end of the day, like I said before, it's just a subsidy program for renewable generation. They need you in Londonderry to pledge your usage of the program, and they pay you to say thank you as a result of that. And your only obligation is that you don't reduce or curtail or self-generate the usage that you've pledged the program. So if you say, we as Londonderry would like to pledge 1 million kWh, you're signing up for the length of that group net metering deal to continue to use at least 1 million kWh.
I like hydro. I don't like landfill gas, but that's another story.
You're in hydro right now, so we're checking that box. So
You know, hydro was, landfill gas and is considered a natural resource, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it as a natural resource personally.
You're sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, the power company's making a lot of money off that gas and then selling it back to us in the wires.
And again, this is just a program to take advantage of the fact that Londonderry is using 1 million kWh right now, and you might as well get paid for it.
So, but is it helping the let's say somebody that has a small hydro dam or something?
Oh, absolutely.
How are they benefiting from it?
So consider, you're operating a small hydro dam. You might be up in Hancock, New Hampshire, and you'd like to have some sort of forecastable model in terms of what your rate of remuneration, what your rate of pay is going to be for the kilowatt hours that you generate. Now, you're not generating around the clock. It's an intermittent resource. And so one of the best features of this program is that regardless of when the small hydro dam operator generates those kWh, they get paid the same rate per kWh regardless of when that generation takes place. It's very difficult if I owned a hydro dam to come down to Londonderry and say, hey, I can sell it to you at 7 cents a kilowatt hour, but these are the only hours it's available. The rest of the time you're on your own. And that's a real difficult issue for intermittent generation to solve when going into the private marketplace. And this is a big solve for that.
Yeah, I get that in regards to hydropower, but I really don't get it how somebody that has a landfill gas, that they're taking off a landfill. Why should they get any benefit at all? I don't know.
In terms of why landfill gas is in the program, it's based in the statute upon where we issue our Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, and Class 4 renewable energy certificates. And landfill gas is eligible, I think it's Class 4 renewable energy certificates. And as a result of that, they're an eligible source of generation under the statute for this program. The idea being is that they are a renewable resource under the eyes of the state of New Hampshire. Similar to how there's debate over biomass. New Hampshire considers biomass to be a renewable generation resource, but Massachusetts, for instance, does not. right? So it's all dictated based upon state policy. So that's why landfill gas is included here in New Hampshire, is because they do have compliance recs associated with their production.
Thank you.
So, what are we, you said, at one point you said we agree not to build power generation, and then you also said we agree to continue buying power generation. So what is it exactly we're giving up if we go into this program?
So I guess the easiest, and I apologize, this gets a little confusing, even for me. But the best way to visualize your commitment to this program is you are saying you're going to continue to pull a certain amount of kilowatt hours from the grid.
Got it. Okay. So there's no workaround of Londonderry. Lynn builds a solar power plant and Londonderry funds it, and then we buy the. You can't work around the program by having someone else own the power plant in Londonderry for Londonderry to buy the power.
So you could have a scenario where Londonderry builds a solar power plant on the landfill, right? And so Londonderry then sells that power to another participant, another off-taker, or even sells to Londonderry directly through a third-party supply. The only thing that you can't do with that solar array on the landfill is have it tied in behind your meter so that the kilowatt hours that you're pulling never see the grid.
So, what power is incorporated in this? If we go to the consolidated or the negotiated power rate, does all of that get incorporated into that? And is it just, or we're just guaranteeing that we're gonna use, the Londonderry uses 1 million kilowatt hours. We're gonna guarantee that we're gonna use it. We're gonna continue using whatever percentage we put in.
Yep. Yes. So like for instance, like this community power program wouldn't impact it at all. Your third party supply contracts would not impact this at all. The only thing that impacts this is the amount of kilowatt hours that you've pledged to the program and that you can continue to meet that number. So let's say we decide we're going to do 50%. We're going to play it safe. We're going to go 500,000 kilowatt hours per year. Depending upon whether you're doing the hydro or you're doing the solar, you're committing for that term length that you will at least be pulling 500,000 kilowatt hours from the grid. Because if you put a panel on the roof here, there's some amount of kilowatt hours that never see the grid because they've been offset before you get to the grid. And so that would be a way that you'd be in default of the program.
That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Mike?
How are those rates that you just quoted us, the 7.5, 10, whatever, those percentages, are they negotiated between the developer of the array and the town?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. These are the rates that they're offering, but there can be some discourse between, where they are. If the town says, these are what we'd like to have after reviewing the contract and negotiating, there is some give on contract terms and sometimes give on what the percentage might be. So that does happen. But their kind of go-to-market offering, if you will, is that 5, 7.5, 10% structure that escalates with the utility rates.
And who is they?
So they right now for this program would be our developers, Walden Renewables. We also work with Lodestar Energy. We work with ECA. And so I've got a project right now in Unitil with Lodestar, for instance. And so they have slightly different terms and rates for the Unitil market than what I have for Eversource. But the Walden project right now is an array site opportunity that they have control over in Chester, New Hampshire. And I believe that they're, I forget if they've already got siting approval from the town or not. And the next level is waiting on the Eversource interconnection queue. So even if Londonderry said to me tomorrow, we're interested in lining up with this solar field in Chester, New Hampshire, it would still take about 2 years for that array to go through the interconnection feasibility process, interconnect, and then energize.
So that array, if I remember right, was 7 megawatts. Is that right?
It has to be sized for the program, which caps out at 5. So I think it's like 4.87 megawatts is that array. Anything over 5 megawatts isn't eligible for this program.
So they're going to intentionally stay below
Yeah, they have to. Otherwise, they lose their eligibility for this.
Thank you.
Sure.
Martha?
I'm all set.
John?
At one time, if you owned energy, well, it wasn't energy efficient, all electric home, you could get cheaper rates. That went away. We have, I think now, HERA, H-E-E-R-A, home energy credits. Is there any consideration for people that convert and have an all-electric home to get lower rates, or that's not even on the table? That's per state, per rebate?
Yeah, so a lot of that stuff is going to come through the New Hampshire Saves program, which has had a lot of difficulty over the last few years in terms of funding. And so, everything from demand response programs to getting rebates through the utilities for changing out your light bulbs, all that is conducted through the New Hampshire Saves program. And so those will still continue to be administered through that program, regardless of the community power program or the net metering program.
I mean, a lot of states are offering like complete conversions. If you do a heat pump, they pay for the panel, they pay for basically almost everything just to get you on the grid.
Yeah, and it's just a differentiation between our state policy and Massachusetts or Vermont on that basis.
You see, houses contribute 20 to 25% of greenhouse, but we don't do any. Okay, I got it. We shoot ourselves sometimes.
Ann?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Good?
Yeah, if you could just talk me through, I guess I'm kind of hard to see some downsides of this program, because I guess I'm thinking if we go through, if we follow through on a project at Auburn Road with a solar field, it's intermittent power because sun doesn't shine all the time. We get snow on the panels. So ideally, it would be hooked up to the grid, unless, of course, we had battery backup. So I guess so that's what I'm thinking. What are the downsides of this program besides if we want to go through a solar, which I don't even see if there's a downside there.
Yeah, again, the biggest challenge is that 20 years is a long ask, and the hydro program kind of moves like hotcakes, if you will, because of the short-term nature of that program. With the 20 years, it's difficult for a community to envision what's going to be happening 5 years, 10 years down the road, and in some ways, it does handcuff you in terms of self-generation. I would say in terms of what we've seen with a lot of municipalities, moving towards electrification. That seems to be where all the incentives are going with heat pumps and everything else. We have seen as you start to curtail your fossil fuel usage, your natural gas, your oil for heating, there is a pretty significant rise in electricity consumption as a result of that. And so sometimes when planning long-term, our communities will take that into consideration. And I'll give you an example. I work with the town of Sharon down in Massachusetts. And Sharon's former high school used 800,000 kilowatt hours annually, but had natural gas as its heating source. Now they've built a brand new high school, completely efficient, heat pumps, everything electrified, but now they've got all the computer screens and monitors, everything that comes with a modern building. Their usage went from 800,000 kilowatt hours annually to 2.3 million. And it's serving the same number of students and is only slightly larger from a square footage standpoint. So, and again, everything there is much more efficient than it was before. They're not they have no natural gas usage there now, so they've cut down entirely on the natural gas bill, but there is some of that will be reflected in terms of usage going forward for the municipality as a result of electrification. So it gives you a little bit of a buffer when you're thinking long-term about trying to match up how many kilowatt hours you might pledge to a program versus what you have today. It'll likely be more down the road.
Question, the 1.2 million,
Yeah.
is that just for town, I'm new to the committee.
Sure.
Is that just for the town of Londonderry facilities?
Yeah, what we call campus load. That's town of Londonderry.
No schools.
No schools.
The town side.
Yep.
Town
Okay,
hall,
just the
fire
town
departments.
side, I'm
Yes.
trying to understand.
Fire
Okay.
departments, police station, DPW.
But it's not the whole town of Londonderry residents? and
Correct.
businesses, Okay.
Correct.
Right,
Yep.
that's what I was trying to understand.
So Bart and I talked a little bit about this a week or so ago, and my feel on it is with going to the solar option, if we're looking at putting in solar capacity ourselves, I'm tempted just to not do anything in terms of moving from the hydro to the solar.
Yep.
especially if we're looking at penalties down the road if we do come up with something and we do pull out of it, so.
Yep. No, understandable. Just want to make sure that the town was aware. We're just as these programs come up, educating in case something changes, and you guys want to take a second look at it. So.
Yep. Year down the road, we might be in a different position, but
Is there a reason why we would not want to include the school buildings in their draw?
I'm engaged with Alan Is it Miller?
Miller.
Alan Miller right now about the hydro and the solar programs. When we did this a couple years ago, I didn't have an opportunity to connect with the school district, but we've come into some additional hydro and obviously all the new solar that's being built. So reached out to Alan a couple months ago, and we've had about 3 meetings on this so far. And so I think the school district's taking a pretty hard look at this.
If we helped you with the school district, will you give us an extra?
There was a time, but no, I think the best part about it is that the school district can go and take a look at what the town's already done. So there's some proof in the pudding for Alan and his team that this is actually real. And my biggest hurdle has always been with this program, convincing people that I had money to hand out and there really wasn't much I was asking in return. So having Londonderry as an existing client definitely helps with that. So.
Well, it just strikes me that if we are running a risk based on future flexibility, and 20 years from now is beyond the point where the national goal is to be at net zero.
Yep.
So that would imply that we'd have to be generating a lot of our own or buying a lot of our own, and it could be just buying renewables, and that would still meet the offtake requirement, right?
So in terms of your own goal setting and meeting your requirements, yes, buying the renewable energy certificates could meet like Londonderry's goals, or if there's any federal or state goals imposed by the town. But again, with this program, it's just rebate money that's given to you as a result of the pledge of the kilowatt hours. Like you wouldn't be able to say as a result of this, we're buying hydro or buying solar. Now, what you can do with some of my developers or my hydro owners is sometimes they'll include the purchase of RECs with the program. So you can kind of take your rebate money and then say, I'd like to exchange that for the renewable energy certificates attached to your program. That's also a possibility. And then once you have those, then you can lay claim to, we are buying green from this facility located at this location.
By retiring them, you mean.
Exactly.
Yeah. What struck me is that if we could cooperate with the school district, we could mitigate some of the risk by pledging our own. Maybe if we each we had a mixture. So we might start out each pledging half of our offtake, but then in the future things might change where we would want to adjust those percentages so that neither entity violated its pledge. Is that a feasible thing to do?
Yeah, certainly if Londonderry and the school district did a combined program where you're both in the same group net metering pool with a solar provider for 20 years, it does give you more KWH to balance with. That's certainly a possibility that if you wanted to take that up with the school district. The one thing I'll just say is that, when we do commit to the program, so let's say that we go with 50%. And then we do a major upgrade at one of your facilities and the usage has gone up. We won't have the opportunity to go to the developer or the hydro dam and say, oh, we've got this extra KWH that we want to put in the program. They won't be able to take that unless they have a gap because someone else has been deficient. And so, there might be other programs available at that time, but probably for a lower remuneration rate. So we'd have to do a separate contract type of a situation.
And do you remember how much the school district uses?
I think it's about 4 million KWH annually. Your usage is pretty low for a town of your size because Manchester handles the water. You don't have a wastewater facility, water treatment, and because of that, your usage is considerably lower than where it would be for a town of your size.
Good. Anything else? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all. Good to see you again.
very instructive.
Yes,
And
thank
we're
you.
looking forward to, taking the next steps with the community
Public
power
meetings.
aggregation.
What'd you say, we're going live in 2 weeks?
February 29th.
Excellent, excellent. Good to see you all. Thank you for having us.
Moving on to administrative board work. Can I hear a motion for approval of our December minutes?
Anybody?
Anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second from anybody?
The agenda says November.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
December.
I just want to make clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
I should have said that more clearly.
I'll second.
All in favor of approving December minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous, 7-0. Or, 7-0.
I was getting where we were gonna forget, it was so long.
Yeah, I know it.
Because I did it right away.
Discussions with staff, obviously, we have no staff here tonight, but I do have a couple things I want to brief everybody on. Number one, I want to congratulate Ray Breslin tonight. As of yesterday morning, he's a new great-grandfather for, what, the second time?
Second time, yeah. I didn't do nothing. You know,
You will.
I'll be paying a lot. Everybody's healthy, yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
I think babies and weddings are the two optimistic things that we can all hopefully look forward to at some point in time, so.
Well, waking up in the
congratulations.
morning comes first, but yeah.
I have no control over that. So anyway, congratulations. Ray.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
In no particular order, so we did get an inquiry or an email from Kevin Smith, the previous town manager, just a couple of days ago. There is a company expressing interest in developing the Auburn Road landfill, putting a solar farm up on Auburn Road. So, like, we're back to step one. I think it's an interesting idea. We have looked at it in the past. The Energy Efficiency Task Force looked at it in the past. So I think that's something we'll be looking at.
Can they
going
actually
forward.
do that since that's a Superfund site? Can they have to follow the ARARs? And usually there are, what are considered ARARs, institutional restrictions for Superfund sites into perpetuity. So I'm sort of curious as to whether or not it's a possibility.
Good
under
questions.
these ARARs.
I don't know the answers to that, but good questions.
In the previous version of this committee, we were briefed by a firm that has done at least one capped landfill.
Yeah.
So you're right, there are additional requirements and techniques that have to be used, but apparently that was, at least for them, not an insurmountable obstacle to doing the program. So we'd have to, learn a lot more
Yeah.
detail about it, but it
I'm
doesn't appear
not
to
so
be a
worried about the
showstopper.
technical aspects, I'm more concerned about the legal aspects.
Is this the same company that we previously, Kevin Smith, had signed with?
I, like I said, just got it in, Ray. I haven't done any homework on it yet, so I don't know.
Okay, because that company basically, I think, I don't know if they went default, but they merged with another company, which I think has offices in Manchester or Concord. So I'd just like to know what company we're talking about here.
Yep. We'll keep everybody appraised of what's happening. I'll put together just a quick little plan, and I'm sure when we have our next energy subcommittee meeting, this will be a big topic of discussion as well,
Why is Kevin Smith involved with that?
because they contacted him.
Well,
He was their point of contact 2 years ago.
Previously.
Yeah, previously.
Well,
So
I mean,
he's out of the picture now.
he's got nothing to do with the town.
No, he's out of the picture now. He just forwarded the mail. So he just forwarded the contact.
People still call me for cable stuff 25, 30 years ago, so.
Yeah.
So anyway, just keep in mind that
Oh,
that might
God,
be
yeah.
under discussion going forward in 2024. We're going to have committee leadership elections in March, so we'll be doing that at our March meeting. And so we'll be, if anybody wants to stage a take over, feel free.
And a reminder, if you're not here, there's a higher possibility of getting up to a position.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that'll be happening in March, and yeah, okay, that'll be happening at our meeting in March. The deliberative session for the schools is Friday night. The session for what time is it, Friday night?
7.
7 o'clock Friday night at the high school cafeteria. The town side is Saturday morning at 9 o'clock.
9 a.m.
And I encourage
9 a.m.
everybody watching, everybody here to attend. And, I think already everybody here is taking part in, making this town a better town. So, but if we can encourage other people to attend, so much the better.
Along those lines, I guess I'm curious, so the warrant article for water
Yep.
is still going to be a part of those deliberative sessions?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and, yeah, the warrants, I think they got published today, the final version got
Yes.
published today, so,
Online.
take through and, read them, get educated before you go, and we'll see where everything goes.
Can I ask a question? It seems though, there are still some unanswered questions in regards to the wording of that warrant article. And so the town feels comfortable with putting it forward?
Town certainly feels comfortable, I think that, are you gonna be there Saturday morning? I think that might be a valid question to ask Saturday morning to the town leadership.
Yep.
And along the same lines, right now, on March 4th, there is a tentative schedule out there to have a presentation put out by the DES on the town water situation. DES is planning on coming here and having a televised session with the town council. It'll be happening across the street at the high school cafeteria, but it'll be televised.
What date was this?
March 4th, right now.
March 4th.
At what time?
Right now, it's probably in the evening. I think that's a Monday.
One thing less on our checklist.
Yeah. So, and it's going to be at the high school?
I think so. This is not the official notice.
Who's setting that up?
Town manager is setting that up with DES. I'm sure Ron has some involvement in it as well. And just to bring to everybody's attention, Sherman-Packard is holding a, I guess, monthly television show at this point in time, Concord Conversations. And the show last week was attended, or Ron was there, and Mike Malaguti was there, along with Doug Thomas, and the discussion was on water. The meeting is on YouTube. It's about 35 minutes, 38 minutes.
Yeah.
And I recommend everybody watching it, everybody to watch it, just to understand what has been happening out in the bigger world. Yep, and I think there's gonna have at least one more conversation.
Yeah, we'll have one more show.
What's it going to focus on, do you know?
The show will be on water again.
Yeah, but
And
specifically what on water, like St. Cobain or?
Probably the warrant article, would be my guess.
Is it going to be in that Concord Conversations again?
Yes.
What date?
We don't have a date yet, sir.
Yeah, and that's a show that's put on by Sherman-Packard.
Yes.
So we're kind of at his,
He invited us on it.
Yeah.
So it's a show that's done, that he does
Regular.
on his own, and he invited us to it.
yep.
So
Do you
we took
know what
advantage of-
date that's going to be?
We do not.
Will you tell us
Sure.
when you know that date?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So who's presenting for the town?
At this point, I'm going to assume it's Mike, but I haven't asked him. He doesn't know the date. We haven't decided on a date yet.
So more to come on that.
Yeah.
And with that, we can move on to subcommittee discussions. Anything from the energy subcommittee meeting, energy subcommittee? We did not have a meeting, so nothing really to report.
You want me to do an update on the EECG thing now?
Yeah, why not? Let's do that right now.
So, I'm happy to report, actually, that the town has submitted its grant application for the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant, which is a $75,000 award. Goes to pretty much every entity in the state. You probably don't remember it. We've talked about it before. It's under the acronym EECBG, but we had reached an agreement that what we want to do is take advantage of this money to create a sound strategic plan for our energy efficiency and conservation. So the grant is done online and a portal, and Justin Campbell was very kind to take the lead on it at Town Hall, and I sat with him and I drafted a bunch of things that he was able to cut and paste into this application. So about 11:15 this morning, we hit the submit button, and it's now a matter of waiting for the Department of Energy at the federal level to come back and say, yes, your application is adequate and we'll proceed, or they'll come back and say, it's not adequate, fix these things. So once we are accepted, the money does not actually come to the town. The money will go to a vendor, a consultant that is contracted by the Department of Energy, and the contract will read, you are to work with Londonderry and help them develop a strategic plan. So it's great in the sense that there's very limited red tape and financial stuff. There's no money going through town books that we have to deal with. We will then work with that contractor to come up with a detailed scope, and then we'll be off to the races, and hopefully at the end of that period, we'll have a very solid plan that talks about where the low-hanging fruit is, what we can do, what it's gonna cost, feasibility, et cetera, et cetera. So that's now in train.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Water Subcommittee?
Yeah, the water, since last we've all been together, the water subcommittee's had several meetings. We're working on a roundtable that the format is sort of dynamic at this point. The town manager, as of today, the town manager suggests that he wants to join us for the roundtable. We have our part of the what is PFAS, why do we care, what can you do as an individual, and then the next piece that we want to have Mike cover is what is the town doing.
Yep.
So we're thinking maybe an hour-ish, and then sort of as a roundtable discussion. Ann and John have been doing amazing work getting our piece of it done. Martha and Ray also have been doing just phenomenal work. I'm fortunate to have a good team. We believe it's going to be, or it's so far, according to Cameron, we're going to have access to the studio, and this is our intention is to have this be the first of several similar discussions. I'm going to, as of the new information I received in the last 2 minutes, I'm going to be reaching out to Sherm Packard to see exactly what he's doing, and maybe not cross-reference, but maybe work with him to get some of our team. We have Ann, who's on the EPA for 40 years, who is, I think, an amazing resource that it would be just criminal to not make use of. Maybe have her sit down with Sherm, or find ways that we can work with other people doing similar things.
Absolutely.
I think Sherman, Ron, and it would be useful to hear a little bit more as to what's going on at the State House.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and if we're doing quarterly or every 6 weeks or whatever the tempo becomes, would love to have Sherm come to our meetings as well, and we'll expand it to other people related to water. I believe my opinion is water is maybe the most important thing we need to think about in Londonderry, and it might be just that I'm touching it all the time, so it's what I see. But we want to do what we can to communicate what the issues are to the community.
Yep.
In a very direct, very local situation. And as we pull this information out, we're gonna put it on the website and on our Facebook page, and doing what we can for outreach to make sure everyone knows what's going on.
Yep.
Anything else from the team?
Yeah, so we all have a hashing this all out, and I think we're into the whole thing of an introductory, but we need to see where we stand and where, you know what I'm saying, Mike needs to put us, and I'm not even sure we're gonna be meeting tomorrow, but we're prepared to do like an introductory 1 hour. Dan's working hard on the next level of a
Yep.
dirty detail, and then including, I said, one of the people that we wanna bring in is
Is
off
there
our
a pun
checklist.
intended there?
What's that?
Is there a pun intended with the dirty detail?
Yeah.
And clean water?
That's what it is. It's all the facts about dirty detail.
Yeah.
So, it's good. We just need, some dates and things that we can move forward, because right now, you know, things are a little tentative, so.
Yep, yep, first time walking through it too, I mean, you know, you're dealing with all the, getting the training wheels off, so.
Is the
this
date
is good.
tomorrow night
Tomorrow night, yeah, so
was gonna be here?
tomorrow
It's
night
changed?
is as of now, which, again, it's dynamic. So as of now, we have this room reserved tomorrow night. The water subcommittee has this room reserved tomorrow night at 7 o'clock for a full run-through of the presentation.
Okay.
As of this morning, it was us doing our full run-through, which would be 20 to 30 minutes. Well, period. As of about 10 o'clock today, I received an email from Cameron that says Mike may want to be joining us.
Okay.
I will keep everybody on the team posted. I'll keep you posted as well, Lynn. You know, I know Mike's super busy. He's out for a couple days. I'm not trying to throw Mike under the bus. It's just, it's a dynamic situation.
Correct.
But we do know, or I'm sorry, as of 10-ish today, Cameron is working with Drew.
Yeah, Drew.
Drew.
Hi, Drew.
To give us access to the studio, so we can have some more of a sitting down round table, which is what we originally discussed. So we're
Correct.
sort of full circle back to where we started. First meeting is what we discussed, and then the second meeting would be the in-depth discussion that where Ann gets the opportunity to shine, and we may do those in sequence at the same night. So we would get two presentations in the can, and then release them, whatever, you know, we'll make a decision about the tempo to release them.
Okay.
And so,
I think the first part is the emphasis on introduction.
Yep.
What is PFAS? What's the history of it? What sort of materials is it in? What's happening in terms of public health concerns? What should people be concerned about? And third, what can you do about it now? What can people do about it now?
That's the piece we decided to add, is people need to find out, Ann gave me a couple of sites to add of who to call, get it all
Right.
done. Because that's
Perfect.
one
Yep, and
piece we're missing.
URLs.
and I'm pretty sure we could throw that up during the.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we're
That's the other thing I was talking about, you know, while we're doing a presentation, a lot of times you do video.
Yeah.
We can schedule it so a screen flashes, you disappear,
Right.
and there's the webpage.
Perfect.
Credits too, and we're gonna have to coordinate that with them.
Yeah.
Perfect. So,
So we need, if that's the first one, we need, and it's tomorrow, we need to talk about
no,
tonight.
it's the run-through.
Yeah,
The filming
But-
is not tomorrow.
got it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious as to what Mike wants to talk, does he want to be there in this run-through, and what does he want to talk about?
The situation's dynamic.
Yeah, that tells me nothing. So
Yeah,
is
because
he-
we don't
answer
know
is I don't
exactly
know.
I
what
got
he's
it, we
gonna
don't
say.
know.
Yeah, the
Is he
answer is I
gonna
don't
talk
know. We'll
about
find out tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah, the answer is I don't know. I have not had a, yes, I will be there. We're thinking about it.
okay.
The answer is I don't know.
It would be
unfortunately.
helpful, and I've mentioned this before, it would really be helpful if we knew, if he's gonna be doing public information or education things to the public about PFAS, it would be helpful if we got prior notice
Yep.
of that, so that we can at least be there.
Yeah,
And that we know that those things are happening, and just partly because our information messages, it has to be clear and accurate. And I don't want different messages going out and us giving one message and Mike giving another and somebody else giving another. Because it just is not a good look.
Yeah, and
And
if
it
that's our,
confuses people.
yeah,
Well, if there's
if that,
messages they don't want us to send out, I'm sorry. We
correct,
wanna
but
know.
if that's if our mission is to be on this utility committee and we're the water subcommittee, then we have to be involved in these discussions.
Yeah, I've already taken an action to talk to Sherm and
Good.
to Cameron, and I'm gonna
Good.
I'm gonna sort of wrap my arms around it. And
Yeah.
even if we're, at first we're gonna be collecting information, Ann's not, but the rest of us are gonna be collecting information, because Ann already knows.
No, I don't know.
No.
That's for sure.
But, my hope is that as we do our job, we will be a source of information. Because if we have one thing to focus on, which is water, Mike's running a city. He's got
Correct.
50 things
Lots
to
of
worry about,
different
and water
Yeah,
is
that's, yeah.
one of 50 things. So, I think great progress since, I guess it was November, the last time we were together.
It sounds like it. I've been following along with the emails,
Yeah.
and it sounds like you guys are really doing a good job, so I'm excited.
So tomorrow here at
Tomorrow
7.
here, 7 o'clock. Oh, yeah, last piece. Unfortunately, I am not going to be here tomorrow at my own meeting. I have a family thing that came up that I cannot miss. I can't
You're
miss.
the moderator.
Yeah,
Pardon?
you're the moderator. You're asking the questions.
I cannot be there tomorrow.
Okay.
I
Well, we better schedule a
John?
meeting for a different time then.
John, I believe John, you're
John, you
the
wanna be the
vice chair.
moderator?
As long as you guys get the answers.
So I am not able to be there tomorrow. So, but I will be around after that. So,
Okay.
but I do have a lot of to-dos tomorrow during the day.
All right,
Don't
so
we
us,
all?
me, Joe Roken, and ABC, we're all set, right?
I think. And is that other thing we talked about? Is that still on hold? That
Other thing.
Other thing.
Yep, but,
is that on hold? Okay, it's on hold.
yep,
Yeah.
It's a tomorrow conversation.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep, and so I've had a couple of discussions offline with other community members, and it's loud and clear that the town needs to go forward and develop a water master plan, for lack of a better title for it.
Yep.
And I talked to Mike today. I said, we got to make this happen. He says, that's your charge.
Oh,
okay.
Okay, good.
all right.
So
Good.
So start thinking about that too. We have some good information in our back pocket with this Weston and Sampson study that was done last year. And I would recommend everybody get that.
Yep.
And that's gonna be a team effort to put that together. And
Absolutely.
we'll be working with some, with staff and DES as well. And
Yeah.
I'm going to try to pull in the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission to see what they can do to help us as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
That was-
but if, it's one of those things, if you complain, you get the job, right? So,
Absolutely.
so be careful what you ask for, and, but right now, let's move forward.
I think
no,
we
I'm
need
happy
it.
with that. I'm
I
happy with
think,
that.
I'm
You-
happy with that too. We
Yeah,
need it.
you captured. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Martha. You captured something I was going to bring up, not because we want to finish our first first video.
Yep.
But that was going to be the next. If we don't have it, let's just do it ourselves.
Yep, let's do it.
Perfect.
We
I'm
have been
happy.
given the task. Let's take advantage and move
Absolutely.
forward.
Yep. Do as much as we can. Absolutely.
And, is that it from the Water Committee?
That is it from my
Yep,
committee.
so season 1, episode 1 tomorrow. Next week, season 1, episode 2. We're gonna crank these puppies out, right?
Streaming on
Right,
Hulu.
Netflix, people can watch our
So,
streaming.
no activity on the sewer solid waste subcommittee or on the cable internet, subcommittee, so no discussion there. Just go to roundtable. Paul, you wanna start?
I'm good.
Joy?
Yep, good.
Ann?
Good.
Beyond good.
Good.
Pass. Pass.
Oh, my God. You mentioned sewer, and I'm not part of the sewer committee, am I?
I don't.
Or am I?
Are we water sewer?
I don't know.
But, dirty water is also water, okay? And so I think maybe we need to remove it from clean water, but it's something we should kind of keep an eye on, because it's going to impact the town. It's already impacting the town. The town is way behind on it, and so I don't know who is actually on that.
You are.
I am.
The same water people in the same sewer committee. look, we're producing water, we're producing salt.
Okay,
It's a different-
all right,
I
okay,
think it is different.
It's
Yeah,
different.
I think
We
it's
may-
different.
we may not-
It's up to you guys.
It's on our website,
okay.
I
So,
think that's a
it-
good point.
but,
It,
Really
it,
good point, yeah.
it is important. And by the way, power, water is also power. You heard them talk about
Well,
hydropower.
that's, no, sewer and
Okay.
solid waste.
We got a lot of power flow, water
Oh, I
flowing
see,
through
you're
the
right.
town.
You're right.
I think about that, okay? We're also ship sewage to Manchester wastewater treatment plant by gravity, okay? That's actually potential power too. Should we even look at that? Maybe not. But Manchester's putting in a 12-foot in diameter stormwater, combined sewer stormwater, because they have to, because the EPA says they have to, spending millions of dollars on that, hundreds of millions of dollars. And, you know me, I get around. Okay, so I go to the Manchester wastewater treatment plant. I talk to the head engineer there, because I can, okay? And I ask him about that. Have they looked at that? The potential for that stormwater doesn't run all the time, but when it runs, that's a lot of power. The Manchester wastewater treatment plant uses probably 80% of the electricity for the municipalities in Manchester. The river is flowing by there. It powered the Industrial Revolution, okay? They could actually take advantage of that and supplement the cost of running all their motors in that plant. One other thing here. They, on a really high rainfall, all that water goes in there, and it goes down, and it mixes with the sewage, and it overburdens their plant. So what do? They dump it back in the Merrimack River, okay? That's not right, but that's what happens, okay? Goes down to Merrimack, Pennachuck sucks it out of the water, runs it through the plant, puts it back in the plant, in the pipes, and we drink it. I don't like that idea. So, you know, it's a big picture. We need to look at a lot of these things. Londonderry doesn't have a wastewater treatment plant, but we ship it up to Manchester. A lot of that is gravity feed. That is affluent that all the heavies have been taken out of. It could actually be run through a turbine, okay? Made electricity. We need to think ahead. We need to think of some of these things, and we need to have the conversations with these engineers, with Pennachuck, with Manchester Water. I think I said enough.
good food for thought.
You know what I mean? I mean, you know, I look at the big picture. I look at everything. I'm not an engineer, but some of these things you can look at and you can figure out.
Interesting ideas.
You know what I mean?
Great. Ron, anything?
I'm good.
John?
Just a quick question, Mr. Chairman. We had asked, I believe, the town manager for a legal opinion on heating oil aggregation. Did we hear back on that?
Nothing yet.
Do
Nothing
we have
yet.
an expectation?
I will have him set an expectation for us.
Thank
you.
Can I get one more thing?
Yep.
10 seconds. We do have the Facebook page. If some people have stuff they want to put on the Facebook page, send something to Lynn, and he'll send it to me,
Yep, or just directly to you.
or directly to me,
Directly to you.
and we can put it on the Facebook page. We've got 10, how many people here? 3, 9,
11.
6, 9, 11. We've got plenty of people here. If everybody did one thing a month, we'd have a very, very well-populated Facebook page. So,
Good.
that's all.
Sounds good.
Next meeting is March 5th, was what our normal night would be. That is election night.
Oh, no good.
So, not knowing a whole lot, I don't know, is everybody available that night? I know I plan on voting earlier in the day.
I work the
You
election.
work the election?
Mhm.
So,
I believe I'm going to be out of town.
You're gonna be out of town. So what I'm going to propose, I really did not like missing January. I think we lost some momentum by not having a meeting in January. So I'm not, so I don't want to entertain right now having no meeting in March. So let me see if I can come up with an alternate date and see if we can all fit that into our schedule.
Okay.
I'll try to get a couple of different options, and we'll see what we can find out.
That sounds great. Thank you.
So the 5th is out.
I'm gonna say right now, the 5th is out.
All right, just,
Unless there's no better alternative.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
all right, I'll put tentative then, okay.
And with that, is there any other business? I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Opposed? And we're adjourned.